She was a florist who made it her mission to feed every hungry soul who wandered past her shop. When their worlds collided over forgotten birthday flowers and a bowl of soup that cost exactly nothing, neither of them expected what happened next. By the end of this story, you're going to understand why sometimes the universe has to literally shove two people together, and why forgetting your mother's birthday might just be the best mistake a man ever made. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster of a love story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and smash that notification bell.
Why?
Because if you don't, the algorithm will probably show you videos about tax returns instead of romance stories, and let's be honest, nobody wants that kind of energy in their life. Subscribed?
Perfect.
Let's get into it. The black Bentley Continental looked painfully out of place on Magnolia Street. It prowled past the vintage bookstore, the family-owned bakery, and the second-hand furniture shop like a shark that had somehow wandered into a goldfish pond. Inside, Andre Thorne, third richest man under 40 in the country, and currently the most irritated human being in a 50-mile radius, was having what his assistant would later describe as a complete and utter meltdown. What do you mean nobody can deliver? Andre barked into his phone, his jaw tight enough to crack walnuts. I have a florist on retainer specifically for situations like this. Sir, the florist on retainer is currently in Bali. For the vacation you insisted he take after the Morrison wedding nearly killed him. His assistant, Janet, had been with him for 7 years and had long ago stopped being intimidated by his tone. Also, if I may remind you, your mother's birthday is today, not tomorrow.
Today.
As in, the party starts in 6 hours. Andre closed his eyes. His mother. Her 70th birthday. The one event he had sworn on his father's grave, no less he would not forget. He had forgotten. I have meetings until. I've cleared them. The Henderson merger. Postponed. I told them you had a family emergency, which, considering your mother's likely reaction when you show up empty-handed, isn't entirely a lie. Andre pinched the bridge of his nose. Find me a florist. Every high-end florist in the city is either booked or closed for some bizarre flower convention in Portland. However, Janet paused, and Andre could hear her typing. There's a small shop on Magnolia Street. Family-owned. Good reviews. They might be able to help, but you'd have to go yourself. They don't have the staff for last-minute luxury deliveries.
Fine.
The address is. I'll find it. He hung up and directed his driver toward Magnolia Street, a part of the city he'd never visited despite having lived here for 15 years. As the gleaming towers of downtown gave way to tree-lined streets and mom-and-pop shops, Andre felt like he was traveling to a foreign country. His driver pulled up in front of a charming storefront painted sage green with gold lettering that read, Bloom and Company, EST 1987. But it wasn't the elegant window display of sunflowers and roses that made Andre pause as he stepped out of the car. It was the sight on the side of the building. A young woman, maybe late 20s, stood behind a folding table that had been set up on the small patio area adjacent to the shop. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore a dirt-stained apron over a simple yellow sundress. She was ladling soup from a large pot into bowls, moving with the kind of efficient grace that suggested she'd done this 1,000 times before. A line of people, maybe 15 or 20, waited patiently. An elderly man with a shopping cart full of recyclables. A young mother with a toddler on her hip. A teenager with a backpack and hollow eyes that suggested he hadn't slept in a bed for some time. There you go, Mr. Patterson, the woman said, handing a bowl and a wrapped sandwich to the elderly man. Her voice carried across the sidewalk, warm, genuine, completely unaffected. And don't you dare try to leave without taking a cookie. Mrs. Gordon from the bakery made snickerdoodles, and I know they're your favorite. The old man's weathered face cracked into a smile. Lily, you're gonna spoil me. That's the plan. She winked at him. Now go sit at the bench. It's warm today. Andre stood frozen on the sidewalk. He'd seen charity galas where millionaires wrote checks with one hand while holding champagne with the other. He'd attended fundraisers where celebrities posed with underprivileged children for photo ops. He'd written more donation checks than he could count. But this wasn't a photo op. This wasn't a tax write-off. This was a woman on a random Thursday afternoon, feeding people out of her own pocket, acting like it was the most natural thing in the world. The woman, Lily, apparently looked up and caught him staring. For a moment, neither of them moved. She had the kind of face that didn't belong on magazine covers but would make any magazine cover better. Wide brown eyes, a spattering of freckles across her nose, lips that seemed perpetually on the verge of smiling. Not classically beautiful, maybe, but alive in a way that made Andre's chest do something strange. "Can I help you?" she called out, still ladling soup. "If you're hungry, you're welcome to join the line."
Andre blinked.
She thought he looked down at himself. Custom Italian suit, Swiss watch and shoes worth a fortune. She thought he was homeless? "I know," he managed. "I'm here for flowers." "Oh." Her face brightened, which somehow made the strange feeling in his chest worse. "Give me just a few minutes. I'm almost done here, and then I'll be right with you. Feel free to head inside. The shop's unlocked." Andre nodded, but he didn't move. Instead, he watched her. He watched her memorize how the next woman in line took her coffee, light cream, 2 sugars. He watched her squat down to look a shy 6-year-old in the eyes while handing him a sandwich cut into the shape of a dinosaur. He watched her press a $20 bill into the teenager's palm when she thought no one was looking, whispering something that made him duck his head and nod rapidly. For 15 minutes, Andre Thorne, a man who had once closed a billion-dollar deal while simultaneously negotiating a hostile takeover, stood on a sidewalk and watched a woman give away soup. And for the first time in 3 years, since his father's death had turned him into the machine he needed to become to save the company, Andre felt something that might have been warmth. To understand how Lily Gordon ended up standing in front of a billionaire with soup stains on her apron, we need to go back 3 weeks, to the day everything almost fell apart. The Bloom and Company flower shop had been in Lily's family for 37 years. Her grandmother had opened it with nothing but a small inheritance and a dream about bringing beauty into the world. Her mother had run it for 20 years after that, turning it into a neighborhood institution. And when her mother had gotten sick, Lily had dropped out of her 3rd year of medical school to come home and take over. That was 4 years ago. Her mother was better now, in remission, thank God, but Lily had never gone back to school. Somewhere along the way, the shop had stopped being an obligation and had started being a calling. "We're behind on rent again," her younger brother, Jamie, announced, walking into the back room where Lily was arranging a centerpiece for the Morrison wedding. He dropped onto the ancient sofa that had been there since their grandmother's time. "Like, really behind," Mrs. Delacroix called. Lily's hands didn't pause in their work. "How behind?" 3 months behind. Now her hands paused. 3 months. Jamie ran his fingers through his already messy hair. At 23, he was technically an adult, but he still looked like the gangly teenager who used to help their grandmother repot orchids. "I know. I thought we had more time, but apparently the grace period Mrs. Delacroix gave us ran out last week." Lily set down the roses she'd been trimming. Okay, we'll figure it out. The Morrison wedding deposit should cover at least 1 month, and if I can land the Fitzgerald anniversary party."
Lil.
Jamie's voice was gentle, which was worse than if he'd been frustrated. "You're already working 16-hour days. You're still feeding half the neighborhood every Tuesday and Thursday. You can't just—" "I can," Lily said firmly. "I can and I will. This shop is all we have left of Grandma, and I'm not letting Mrs. Delacroix sell it to some developer who wants to turn it into a smoothie bar." Jamie sighed, but he knew better than to argue when Lily got that look in her eyes. It was the same look she'd gotten when their mom was first diagnosed and Lily had announced she was coming home. The same look she'd gotten when Mr. Patterson had showed up outside the shop, too proud to ask for help but too hungry to walk away. "Fine," Jamie said. "But at least let me help with the feeding thing this week. You can't do everything alone." Lily smiled, her first real smile of the day. "You hate cooking."
Ida. Passionately.
"But I can ladle soup with the best of them, and more importantly, I can flirt with Mrs. Gordon until she gives us extra cookies for free. That woman is 74 years old." And I'm secure enough in my masculinity to appreciate a fine woman regardless of age. Lily threw a rose at him. He caught it, tucked it behind his ear, and struck a pose that made her laugh despite everything. This was how they survived, with humor and stubbornness and the unshakable belief that somehow things would work out. They had to. 2 weeks before that day, 30 blocks away and several tax brackets up, Andre Thorne was having a different kind of crisis. "You need to take a vacation," Dr. Rebecca Sterling said, not for the first time. She was the company's on-staff psychologist, brought in after the board had noticed that their CEO hadn't taken a day off in 3 years and was starting to look like he belonged in a vampire movie. "Your cortisol levels are through the roof, your sleep patterns are non-existent, and quite frankly, you're starting to scare the interns." "I'm supposed to scare the interns," Andre said, not looking up from his laptop. "It builds character. It builds lawsuits." Rebecca leaned back in her chair.
Andre.
"Look at me."
He didn't. Andre.
He glanced up. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes. You have 3 meetings in 10 minutes. You always have 3 meetings in 10 minutes. That's not the point." Rebecca steepled her fingers. "When was the last time you did something that wasn't work-related?" "I sleep. For 4 hours a night." "Try again." "I eat. Protein shakes at your desk don't count." Andre was quiet for a moment. The truth was he couldn't remember. Since his father had died, suddenly, without warning, leaving the company in chaos and Andre scrambling to prove he was more than just the heir apparent, he had become someone new. Someone harder. Someone who didn't have time for vacations or hobbies or anything that wasn't directly related to keeping his father's legacy alive. "My mother's birthday is in 2 weeks, he finally said. "I'll take time off for that." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "A whole day?" "Half a day," he amended. "Maybe. Better than nothing, I suppose." She made a note in her file. "Have you picked out her gift yet?"
Andre nodded.
"A trip to Bali. First-class tickets, luxury resort, the works." "That's very generous. But what about something personal? Something that shows you were thinking specifically about her?" Andre stared at Rebecca like she'd started speaking Mandarin. Rebecca sighed. "Your mother loves flowers. She used to garden before her arthritis got bad. Why don't you get her something special? Not through your assistant, yourself. Put some thought into it." "I'll have Janet handle it." "That's the opposite of what I just..." Rebecca stopped herself. "Some battles weren't worth fighting. Just try to be present at the party, okay? Physically and emotionally. Your mother would appreciate actually having her son there, not just his body while his mind is on conference calls." Andre nodded absently, already thinking about the Singapore deal. He'd put the flowers on his to-do list. He'd add it right after he saved the world. 1 week before that day. "I got us a meeting." Jamie burst into the shop on Tuesday morning with the energy of someone who had either won the lottery or consumed an inadvisable amount of espresso. Lily looked up from the tulips she was unpacking. "A meeting with who?" "Whom?" Jamie corrected, because their grandmother had been particular about grammar. "A meeting with the Thornton estate. You know, the huge mansion out on the cliffs? Apparently, their usual florist retired, and they're looking for someone new. I mentioned our shop to a guy who knows their event coordinator, and..." "Jamie." Lily held up a hand. "Breathe." Jamie breathed. "Now explain slowly." "The Thornton estate is hosting some massive birthday party next week. 70 years old, super fancy, probably obscenely wealthy. If we land this contract, we could pay off all the back rent, and then some." Lily felt hope flutter in her chest, a dangerous feeling she'd learned not to trust. "What's the catch?"
No catch.
"We just have to go pitch to the event coordinator tomorrow and convince her that we're better than the high-end places downtown." "Jamie, we're a family shop on Magnolia Street. Those places have corporate accounts and delivery fleets and none of them have you." Jamie pointed at her with the intensity of a lawyer making a closing argument. "You're the best floral designer in this city. Remember the Morrison wedding? The bride cried when she saw the arrangements. Happy tears. That's rare." Lily bit her lip. "What would we even pitch?" "Something unique. Something that shows we're not just cheaper, we're better. Jamie pulled out his phone and started scrolling. I've been researching the family. The birthday lady is Eleanor Thornton. Her late husband was big into community work, charity stuff. She's apparently super classy, but down to earth. And get this, she used to grow her own roses before arthritis made it impossible. Her favorite variety was something called Grandma's Blessing. Lily's eyes widened. Grandma's Blessing? That's a heritage variety. It's almost impossible to find. Can you find it? Lily thought about the connections she'd built over 4 years of running the shop. The specialty growers she'd befriended. The seed exchanges she participated in. The elderly gardeners who shared cuttings like they were sharing state secrets. Maybe, she said slowly, I might know someone. Jamie grinned. Then, let's win this thing. The Thornton estate was, somehow, even more intimidating in person. Lily sat in the pristine waiting room, her portfolio clutched to her chest like a shield, trying not to feel out of place. Everything around her looked like they cost a fortune, and they definitely did. The abstract art on the walls, the furniture that looked designed more for aesthetic appeal than actual sitting, even the receptionist's handbag. Ms. Waltz. Lily stood so quickly she almost knocked over a decorative vase.
Yes.
That's me. The event coordinator, a woman named Margaret who looked like she'd never encountered a problem she couldn't solve with a single phone call, led her to a conference room with windows overlooking the ocean. You have 15 minutes, Margaret said, not unkindly. We're meeting with 7 other florists today. 15 minutes. Lily nodded, set up her portfolio, and began. She didn't talk about prices or delivery schedules or corporate counts. Instead, she told a story. She told them about her grandmother, who had believed that flowers weren't just decorations, they were messages. About her mother, who had taught her that every arrangement should tell a story about the person receiving it. About her own philosophy that the best floristry wasn't about showing off the designer's skills, it was about making the recipient feel seen. She showed them sketches, not generic centerpieces, but designs specifically created for Eleanor Thornton, a woman who had loved gardening, who had lost her husband but kept his memory alive, who was turning 70 surrounded by family. And then she played her trump card. I was also able to source these. Lily pulled a small potted plant from her bag. Grandma's Blessing roses. A heritage variety that was your client's favorite. I have a grower who can provide enough for centerpieces at every table if you're interested. Margaret's professional mask cracked, just slightly. How did you know about the roses? Research. And I believe that if you're going to do something for someone, you should do it properly. There was a long silence. Then Margaret smiled, a real smile, not the polite one she'd been wearing. Leave your portfolio with me. We'll be in touch. 2 days before that day, Lily got the contract. She screamed when Margaret called with the news, which sent Jamie running into the room convinced something horrible had happened. When she explained, he screamed too, and Mrs. Gordon from the bakery came over to see what all the commotion was about and ended up crying with happiness because she'd known Lily's grandmother and she would be so proud. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Lily sourced flowers from every contact she had. She called in favors, drove to specialty growers 3 hours away, and worked through the night creating arrangement after arrangement. Jamie handled logistics, organized deliveries, and managed to charm half the neighborhood into helping with preparation. By the morning of the party, everything was ready. You did it, Jamie said, looking at the shop that had been transformed into a staging area for the Thornton estate delivery. You actually did it. Lily was too exhausted to be properly proud. Let's just get through today. The setup team will be here in an hour to transport everything, and then we can...
Her phone rang.
She looked at the number, the Thornton estate. Hello. Ms. Waltz? This is Margaret. There's been a slight change of plans. Lily's heart stopped. Change? Nothing bad, I assure you. We've just had a request from the family. One of the arrangements, the personal one you designed for the birthday display, apparently isn't what they want anymore. But we agreed on the design. The Grandma's Blessing roses, the white lilies, I know, and it's beautiful work. But the family member in question would like something different. He says it needs to be more impressive, more expensive looking. Margaret's voice carried a hint of apology. He's insisting on exotic imports. Something that makes a statement. A statement, Lily repeated flatly. What kind of statement? The I'm wealthy and important kind, I imagine. Lily closed her eyes. The personal display was designed specifically for Mrs. Thornton. Those roses were her favorite variety. This family member, has he even asked her what she wants? Silence on the other end. No, Margaret admitted. I don't believe he has. Then with all due respect, please tell him that the arrangement stays as designed. If Mrs. Thornton sees it and doesn't like it, I'll personally redo it at no charge. But I'm not changing it based on someone else's ego. More silence. Then Margaret laughed, a genuine, surprised sound. You know what? I'll pass that along. Good luck, Ms. Waltz. I have a feeling you're going to need it. Lily hung up and looked at Jamie. What was that about? He asked. Apparently some rich guy wanted to change Eleanor Thornton's birthday arrangement to something more impressive. Let me guess, you told him to shove it? Professionally, but yes. Jamie grinned. That's my sister. By Thursday afternoon, Lily was running on approximately 4 hours of sleep, 3 cups of coffee, and pure adrenaline. The Thornton estate delivery had gone off without a hitch, mostly because she'd stayed on site for 3 hours making sure every arrangement was perfect. The setup crew had been impressed. Margaret had been impressed. Even the butler, the actual butler, because apparently those existed outside of movies, had complimented the roses. Now Lily was back at the shop, trying to decompress before her Tuesday through Thursday feeding program. It was something she'd started 2 years ago, after finding Mr. Patterson, then just a stranger, slumped against the building, too weak to move and too proud to ask for help. She'd given him soup and a sandwich and a place to rest, and somehow, it had grown from there. You don't have to do the feeding thing today, Jamie said, watching her wash her hands. You're exhausted. I can handle it. You burn water. That was one time. You set off the smoke alarm. The fire department came. Again one time. And that firefighter was cute, so really it worked out. Lily smiled despite herself. I want to do it. It's grounding. Reminds me what matters. She changed into her yellow sundress, the one her grandmother had said made her look like sunshine, and put on her work apron. The soup was already warming in the industrial-sized pot she kept in the back. The sandwiches were prepped. The cookies from Mrs. Gordon were arranged on a tray. By 2 p.m., people were starting to line up. Lily fell into the familiar rhythm. Ladle, serve, smile. Ask about their day. Remember their names. Make sure everyone knew they were welcome, regardless of circumstances. She was handing Mr. Patterson his snickerdoodles when she felt it, the strange sensation of being watched. She looked up, and there he was. A man standing on the sidewalk, looking at her like she was a math problem he couldn't solve. Expensive suit. Even more expensive watch. The kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, sharp jaw, dark eyes, hair that probably cost more to cut than her monthly groceries. He was also clearly not homeless. Can I help you? She called out. If you're hungry, you're welcome to join the line. The man blinked like she'd short-circuited him. I know, he managed. I'm here for flowers. His voice was deep and a little rough, like he wasn't used to speaking to strangers about non-professional matters.
Oh.
Give me just a few minutes. I'm almost done here, and then I'll be right with you. Feel free to head inside. The shop's unlocked. He nodded but didn't move. Lily turned back to her line, but she was acutely aware of him still standing there, watching. There was something in his gaze that made her feel oddly exposed, like he wasn't just looking at her, but actually seeing her. It made her nervous in a way she couldn't explain. She served the rest of the line with her usual care, but faster than normal. When she pressed the $20 bill into Marcus's palm, Marcus, 17, sleeping in bus shelter since his parents kicked him out, she whispered, "The shelter on 5th Street has beds available. Tell them Lily sent you. They'll take care of you." The boy's eyes went glassy. He nodded and hurried away. Lily took a breath, wiped her hands on her apron, and turned to face the stranger. He was still standing in the exact same spot. "You did all that," he said, sounding almost confused. "For free?" "For them," Lily corrected. "There's a difference." Something flickered in his dark eyes, surprise, maybe, or something deeper.
Why?
It was such a strange question that Lily laughed. Because they're hungry? Because they're human beings? Because sometimes people need help, and if I can give it, why wouldn't I? He stared at her for another long moment. "I'm Lily," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome to Bloom and Company. Now, what kind of flowers do you need?" The man looked at her hand like he'd forgotten how handshakes worked. Then slowly he took it. His grip was firm. His palm was warm. And when their skin touched, Lily felt a small jolt, like static electricity, but stranger.
"Andre," he said.
"I need flowers for my mother. Her birthday is tonight, and He paused, jaw tightening. "I've made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind where I forgot to handle the most important part of her gift myself." Lily tilted her head, studying him. There was something vulnerable beneath all that polished armor, something human trying to peek through. "Well, Andre," she said, "let's see what we can do about that. Come on." She turned and walked toward her shop, and after a moment, she heard his footsteps following. Neither of them knew it yet, but everything was about to change. The interior of Bloom and Company was nothing like Alexander had expected. He'd braced himself for something quaint and slightly run down, the kind of place that survived on nostalgia rather than quality. Instead, he walked into a space that felt like stepping inside a living garden. Plants hung from the ceiling in macrame holders. Flowers burst from vintage containers on every surface. The air smelled like roses and fresh earth and something sweet he couldn't identify. It was chaotic and colorful and completely unlike anything in his perfectly ordered world. He loved it immediately, which annoyed him. "So," Lily said, moving behind the counter with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times, "tell me about your mother." Alexander blinked. "What? Your mother? The person you're buying flowers for?" Lily pulled out a notebook and a pen that had a tiny sunflower on top. "What's she like? What does she love? What makes her smile?" Alexander trailed off. When was the last time anyone had asked him to describe his mother as a person rather than as Eleanor Thornton, widow of the legendary Richard Thornton, matriarch of the Thornton Empire? He searched for words. "Strong. She held our family together after my father died. She loves gardening, used to love it before her arthritis got bad. She makes terrible jokes that she thinks are hilarious. She cries at commercials with dogs in them. And his voice softened without his permission. She never stopped believing in me, even when I gave her plenty of reasons to." Lily had stopped writing. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't read, something between surprise and warmth. "What?" he asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing. It's just—" She shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. That was unexpected. Alexander felt his mouth twitch. Was he almost smiling? Lily tapped her pen against the notebook. "So, gardening. What kind of flowers did she grow?" "Roses, mostly. There was one variety she was obsessed with, something with a ridiculous name. Grandma's Blessing?" Lily's pen stopped mid-tap. "Grandma's Blessing," she repeated slowly. "Your mother loves Grandma's Blessing roses."
Loved.
Past tense. She can't garden anymore. Something shifted in Lily's expression. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and Alexander had the distinct impression he'd said something significant without knowing what it was. "What's your mother's name?" Lily asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Eleanor. Eleanor Thornton." The pen dropped. Lily stared at him for a long, frozen moment. Then she closed her eyes, pressed her fingers to her temples, and let out a laugh that sounded slightly hysterical. "Oh my God," she said. "Oh my God. You're him." "I'm who?" "You're the family member." Lily opened her eyes, and now there was fire in them. "You're the one who called this morning and tried to change your mother's birthday arrangement. The one who wanted something more impressive. More expensive looking." Alexander's stomach dropped. How do you know about? Because I'm the florist who designed it. Lily threw her hands up. I'm the one who spent weeks tracking down Grandma's blessing roses because I actually bothered to research what your mother would want. And you wanted to replace them with exotic imports because apparently your mother's favorite flowers weren't fancy enough for you. Alexander opened his mouth to defend himself, but nothing came out, because she was right. He'd called the estate that morning, seen the invoice for the personal display that cost a fraction of what he'd expected, and immediately assumed it was subpar. He hadn't asked what was in the arrangement. He hadn't asked why those specific flowers were chosen. He'd just seen the price tag and decided it wasn't good enough. Just like he always did. I didn't know, he said finally. Didn't know what? That your mother has preferences? That she's a person with her own tastes and memories and not just someone to impress your business contacts with. That's not. Alexander cut himself off, ran a hand through his hair, destroying its careful styling. I didn't know about the roses. I didn't know you'd researched her. I just saw the cost and assumed that cheaper meant worse. He met her eyes. Yes. Lily stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, some of the fire dimmed. At least you're honest, she muttered. Most rich guys I've dealt with would have made excuses. I'm not most rich guys. Could have fooled me. Look, Mr. Thornton. Alexander.
Fine.
Alexander. She crossed her arms. The arrangement is already at the estate. It's beautiful, you should know. I spent 3 hours making sure it was perfect. Your mother is going to love it because it was designed for her, not for whatever image you're trying to project. So either trust the work I've already done, or find another florist for your last-minute ego flowers. Your choice. Alexander should have been offended. He was Alexander Thornton. People didn't talk to him like this. CEOs stammered in his presence. Board members chose their words carefully. Even his own mother softened her criticism with humor. But this woman, this infuriating, soup-serving, sunshine dress-wearing woman was looking at him like he was just another customer who'd disappointed her. And somehow, that made him want to do better. The arrangement stays, he said. As designed. Lily's eyebrows rose. Really? Really? You clearly know more about what my mother would want than I do. The admission tasted bitter, but it was true. I've been absent.
Busy.
I've let other people handle the things that should matter most. And now. Alexander looked around the shop, at the flowers, at the chaos, at the woman who'd yelled at a billionaire without flinching. Now I'm here, he said. And I'd like to buy something else. Something personal. Something I pick myself. Lily studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because her posture relaxed slightly. Okay, she said. But I'm helping you. Left to your own devices, you'd probably pick something based on price per stem. I would not. You absolutely would. She came around the counter and grabbed his arm, actually grabbed him like he was a normal person, and pulled him toward a display of mixed blooms. Now, let's start with the basics. Does your mother prefer warm colors or cool colors? The next hour was unlike anything Alexander had experienced in recent memory. Lily dragged him through the shop like a very determined teacher with a particularly dense student. She explained the meanings behind different flowers: roses for love, lilies for purity, sunflowers for adoration. She made him smell different blooms until he could distinguish between varieties. She asked him questions he didn't know the answers to, and didn't let him off the hook when he tried to deflect. Your mother's favorite color, she pressed. You must know this.
Blue.
Alexander guessed. Lily gave him a look of profound disappointment. You're guessing.
I'm estimating.
That's the same thing with fancier vocabulary. She pulled out her phone. What's her number? I'll just ask her myself. You can't call my mother. Watch me. She'll think. Alexander stopped. What would his mother think? That a stranger was calling to ask about flower preferences? That her son was so clueless he needed help buying a birthday gift? Both were true. Purple, he said suddenly. Not blue. Purple. She wore a purple dress to my father's funeral because he'd always said it was her color. She has purple throw pillows in her reading room. And her garden, before she stopped gardening, always had lavender borders. Lily's expression softened.
See?
You do know her. You just needed to actually think about it instead of throwing money at the problem. I wasn't. You were. She grabbed a bunch of deep purple irises. But we're fixing that now. Come on. By the time they finished, Alexander had helped assemble a small, perfect bouquet. Purple irises, white roses, sprigs of lavender, and a few stems of something called lisianthus that Lily insisted his mother would love. It's not as elaborate as the main arrangement, Lily said, wrapping the stems in brown paper. But it's from you. That matters more. Alexander looked at the flowers. Simple, beautiful, meaningful. Thank you, he said, and was surprised to find he meant it. You're welcome. Lily tied the paper with twine, her fingers quick and sure. That'll be $47. Alexander pulled out his wallet and handed her his black card without thinking. Lily looked at it, looked at him, looked at the card again. This is a black Amex. Yes. For $47. Is there a problem? No, She shook her head, laughing. Do you even own regular money? Like bills?
Coins?
The stuff normal people use? Alexander thought about it. My driver might have some. Lily's laughter got louder. It was a good sound, warm and genuine and completely unself-conscious. You're ridiculous, she said, running the card. You know that, right? I've been called worse. I bet you have. She handed back the card, and their fingers brushed. Neither of them moved. The shop was quiet. Afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows, catching dust motes and making them dance. Somewhere outside, a car horn honked, but it sounded very far away. You should come tonight, Alexander heard himself say. To the party. Lily blinked.
What?
The birthday party. You should come. He wasn't sure why he was saying this. He never invited people to family events. He barely wanted to attend family events himself. You design the arrangements. You should see them in context. I can't just crash a Thornton estate party. It's not crashing if you're invited. By someone who isn't the hostess? By her son. I think that counts. Lily bit her lip, a gesture that Alexander's brain catalogued as extremely distracting and seemed to genuinely consider it. I don't have anything to wear, she said finally. Nothing I own can stand a chance at a Thorn party. I could. If you offer to buy me a dress, I'm throwing these flowers at your face. Alexander closed his mouth. I have a dress. Jamie's voice came from the back room. From my experimental phase. Never worn. Still has tags. Lily spun around. Have you been listening this whole time? Jamie emerged, grinning unrepentantly. Obviously. This is the most entertainment I've had in weeks. He looked at Alexander with open curiosity. So, you're the billionaire who wanted to ruin the roses? I didn't want to ruin. He's reformed, Lily cut in. Allegedly. Jamie circled Alexander like he was evaluating livestock. He's cute. In a doesn't know how to dress himself without professional help kind of way. Jamie.
What?
I'm just saying. Jamie stopped circling and extended his hand. Jamie Waltz. Little brother. Protector of Lily's honor. Also her only employee. Alexander shook his hand, feeling distinctly like he was being interviewed. Alexander Thornton. Yeah, I got that from the black Amex. Jamie smiled, but his eyes were sharp. Hurt my sister, and I'll find a way to destroy you. I don't know how yet, but I'm creative. Jamie. Lily looked mortified.
What?
He should know what he's dealing with. Jamie said defensively. We just met. No one is hurting anyone, Lily retorted. That's what they all say. Jamie patted Alexander's shoulder. The dress is in the back. Go try it on. I haven't agreed to go, Lily protested. Lily. Jamie put his hands on her shoulders and looked her in the eyes. A gorgeous billionaire just wandered into your shop, watched you feed homeless people like some kind of real-life Disney princess, and invited you to a fancy party. If you don't go, I'm disowning you as a sister. You can't disown a sibling. I'll find a way. I'm creative, remember? Lily looked between her brother and Alexander, clearly torn. Alexander knew he should let it go. This was complicated, messy, the kind of situation he usually avoided with extreme prejudice. But he couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd yelled at him, the way she'd made him think about his mother as a person instead of a problem to solve, the way she'd looked, standing in the afternoon sun, handing out soup like it was the most natural thing in the world. Please, he said, and the word felt strange in his mouth. He didn't say please. He gave instructions. He made demands. He offered terms. But for this woman, in this shop that smelled like roses and earth and something like hope, he said please. Lily's expression shifted.
Softened. Fine, she said.
But I'm driving myself. And I'm leaving whenever I want. And if anyone asks, I'm there to check on the flowers.
Deal.
And you're paying for the gas. Obviously. She fought a smile, but Alexander saw it anyway.
The party.
The Thornton estate had been transformed. Eleanor Thornton's 70th birthday party was in full swing when Lily arrived, her borrowed dress, a deep emerald thing that Jamie swore brought out her eyes, feeling increasingly inadequate as she took in the surroundings. Crystal chandeliers, string quartets, waiters circulating with champagne, and everywhere flowers. Her flowers. She spotted them immediately, the centerpieces she designed, glowing under soft lighting, the garlands framing the doorways, the personal display for Eleanor, placed prominently near the cake table, Grandma's blessing roses spilling out like a garden brought indoors. You did all this? Lily spun to find a woman standing behind her, elegant, silver-haired, with eyes that sparked with intelligence and humor. She wore a deep purple dress and a diamond necklace. Eleanor Thornton. Ah, yes, Lily managed. I'm the florist. Lily Waltz. From Bloom and Company. Eleanor's face broke into a delighted smile. You're the one who told my son to shove his exotic imports. I didn't use those exact words. Margaret paraphrased. Eleanor took Lily's hands in hers. My dear, that arrangement, the one with the grandma's blessing roses, is the most beautiful thing I've ever received. Wherever did you find them? I have a network. Growers who specialize in heritage varieties. Lily felt herself relaxing under Eleanor's warmth. Your husband used to buy them for you, didn't he? I read an interview from years ago where you mentioned it. Eleanor's eyes glistened. You read interviews to choose flowers? I research my clients. Flowers are personal. They should mean something. For a moment, Eleanor just looked at her. Then she pulled Lily into a hug that smelled like expensive perfume and felt like something maternal. You, Eleanor said firmly, are exactly what my son needs. Before Lily could process that statement, Eleanor had swept away to greet more guests, leaving Lily standing alone with a head full of questions. She likes you. Alexander materialized beside her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He'd changed into a tuxedo that fit him like it had been painted on, and Lily's traitorous brain immediately started cataloging details, the breadth of his shoulders, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his eyes seemed darker in the evening light. Your mother is lovely, Lily said, accepting the champagne. Way too good for you. She would agree with that assessment. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the party swirl around them. You came, Alexander said finally. I said I would. You could have changed your mind. Most people find reasons to avoid these things. Most people didn't design the flower arrangements. Lily took a sip of champagne, definitely expensive, probably excellent. She couldn't really tell. Besides, I wanted to see if you survived the reunion with your mother. Barely. Alexander's mouth twitched. She cried when she saw the roses. Then she hugged me for approximately 7 minutes straight. Then she told me I looked like I needed to eat more and made me promise to have lunch with her next week. That sounds terrifying. It was. I don't do hugs. Lily raised an eyebrow. You don't do hugs? They're uncomfortable. Too many variables. Arm placement. Duration. The inevitable awkwardness when one person lets go before the other. You've overthought hugs, Lily said, delighted. You've actually found a way to overthink hugs. I overthink everything. It's part of my charm. Is that what we're calling it? Alexander turned to look at her properly, and something in his gaze made Lily's breath catch. Dance with me, he said. That wasn't a question. I'm not good at questions. I'm better at statements. That's very obvious. Lily. He set down his champagne and extended his hand. Dance with me. Please. The please again. That word that seemed to cost him something. Lily took his hand. The string quartet had shifted to something slow and romantic, probably orchestrated by Eleanor, who Lily suspected was watching from somewhere with intense satisfaction. Alexander led her to the dance floor with the confidence of someone who'd probably been taking lessons since childhood. His hand settled on her waist. His other hand clasped hers. They began to move. I don't actually know how to do this, Lily admitted. We didn't exactly have ballroom dancing at the public school I went to. Just follow my lead. Shockingly, you seem like someone who's used to leading. Is that a complaint? An observation. They moved in silence for a moment. Lily was acutely aware of everywhere they touched, his hand on her waist, warm through the fabric of her dress, their joined palms, the brush of his shoulder against hers when he pulled her slightly closer. You're good at this, she said. Years of debutante balls and charity galas. The skills become reflexive. Do you actually enjoy any of it? The parties, the society stuff? Alexander was quiet for a moment. I used to. When my father was alive, these events felt different. Less like performances and more like celebrations.
His jaw tightened.
After he died, everything became about proving I could fill his shoes. The parties became networking opportunities. The galas became reputation management. I forgot what it felt like to just be somewhere. And now, he looked down at her, and Lily felt that intensity again, the focus that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. Now I'm dancing with a woman who yelled at me over flower choices and somehow made me feel like I deserved it. You did deserve it. Probably. His thumb traced a small circle on her waist, and Lily forgot how to breathe. But no one's talked to me like that in years. Everyone's too busy trying to impress me or get something from me. You just said what you thought. I run a flower shop on Magnolia Street. I can't afford to be anything but honest. Is that the only reason? Lily considered the question.
No.
I also just have no filter when I'm angry. Ask Jamie. I once told a customer who complained about prices that she could buy her flowers at a gas station if mediocrity was her goal. Alexander's laugh was unexpected, low and genuine, and slightly rusty, like he didn't use it often. I would have paid to see that. She never came back, so that's $40 in lifetime revenue I sacrificed for my principles. Worth it. Absolutely worth it. The song changed, but neither of them moved to leave the floor. Alexander's hand pressed slightly more firmly against her waist. Lily's fingers curled more tightly around his. I want to see you again, he said. After tonight. You know where my shop is. I mean properly. Dinner. Conversation. The things normal people do when they're interested in someone. Lily's heart was doing something dangerous in her chest. Are you interested in me? I watched you give away soup for 15 minutes before I could make myself walk into your shop. I let you yell at me about flowers and somehow walked away wanting to be better instead of being offended. I asked you to dance even though I hate dancing because I wanted an excuse to be close to you. Alexander's voice was low, intense. Yes, Lily. I'm interested in you. The rational part of Lily's brain was screaming warnings. He was a billionaire. She was a florist drowning in debt. They came from different worlds. This couldn't possibly work. But the other part of her brain, the part that believed in feeding strangers and designing flowers with meaning and taking chances even when they were terrifying, that part wanted to say yes. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll have dinner with you. But I'm choosing the restaurant, because if you take me somewhere with a 14-course tasting menu, I will fall asleep in the soup course. Alexander smiled, a real smile, not the polished one he wore like armor, and Lily felt something shift between them. Whatever you want, he said.
And he meant it.
6 months later. The shop looked different now. New paint on the exterior. Sage green, as before, but fresher. New displays in the windows. A small brass plaque near the door that read, Bloom and Company. EST 1987, proudly serving our community. Lily stood on the sidewalk, taking it all in. Admiring your own work? Alexander came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He was wearing a casual sweater, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago, and his hair was slightly mussed from where she'd run her fingers through it earlier. Admiring what's possible when your rent gets mysteriously paid off by an anonymous donor, Lily said dryly. Very mysterious. No one will ever know who did that. Alexander, you signed the check. Did I? How careless. Lily turned in his arms and poked him in the chest.
We talked about this.
I don't need you to rescue me. I know. I just wanted to. He caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. Consider it my payment for emotional transformation services. That's not a thing. It's absolutely a thing.
You taught me how to feel things again.
That's worth at least a year of rent. Lily tried to maintain her stern expression, but it was hard when he was looking at her like that, soft and open and completely different from the machine she'd met in this exact spot 6 months ago.
Fine, she said.
But the next mysterious donation goes to the shelter on 5th Street. Already done. Marcus says hi, by the way. He's doing well in the culinary program. Lily's throat tightened. Marcus, the teenager she'd given $20 to, is now enrolled in a culinary school that Alexander had somehow made happen without making it feel like charity. You're too much, she said. You love it.
She did.
God help her, she did. Come on. Alexander took her hand. Your brother is threatening to start the soup without us, and apparently there's a new volunteer he wants to introduce you to. A volunteer or a volunteer? Lily made air quotes. Because last time, it was a firefighter he was trying to set himself up with. Unknown. But he did seem very excited. They walked toward the shop, hand in hand. The Tuesday through Thursday feeding program had expanded now, more volunteers, more food, more community involvement. What had started as Lily with a pot of soup had become something bigger. Something that would outlast her. At the door, Alexander paused. What? Lily asked. Nothing. He looked at the shop, at the flowers in the window, at the community that had formed around something she'd built with love and stubbornness. I never thought I'd find anything like this. A flower shop, a home. He looked at her, and his eyes were full of something that made her chest ache. You gave me a home, Lily. I didn't even know I was looking for one. Lily reached up and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. Come inside, she said. The soup's getting cold. They walked into the shop together, leaving the door open behind them. Because the best things in life, Lily had learned, came from leaving doors open. From taking chances on strangers. From believing that sometimes the universe knew exactly what it was doing when it shoved two completely incompatible people together. And from never, ever forgetting your mother's birthday. And that, my friends, is why you should always be kind to strangers. You never know when one of them might turn out to be a billionaire with emotional availability issues and a really good jawline. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me what you thought. Did you see the romance coming? Did you want to throw something at Alexander in the beginning? Let me know. And hey, if you want more stories like this, that notification bell is your best friend. See you in the next one.